I already learned English, now how do I get a job at an international company? Hello and welcome to the Leveraged Language Podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Perchinsky. This podcast was inspired by a comment on a TikTok video that I made. The video was directed at people who are learning English in order to get a higher paying job at an international company. My point of view was that you do not need to have perfect grammar or perfect pronunciation in order to get a job at an international company. All else being equal, having great grammar and great pronunciation is better than having poor grammar and poor pronunciation. However, all else is never equal. And what I think tends to happen is people focus too much on having perfect pronunciation, perfect grammar. They're too concerned with not making mistakes, and they're not concerned enough with communicating effectively. People are too afraid of making mistakes, and they're not concerned with communication, understanding others, and being understood by others, which is the real goal. And there's plenty of room for mistakes in grammar and pronunciation. That is, a lot of grammar and pronunciation mistakes don't actually detract from your message. They don't prevent you from being understood. If you make a grammar or pronunciation mistake, your message still gets across. About half of my colleagues at a Canadian-based technology company are non-native English speakers, and sometimes they make grammar mistakes. They have accents, their pronunciation isn't perfect, they might use a wrong word, but it doesn't matter because they get their points across. They are understood and they understand other people, and that's what's important. So, the company runs smoothly, they get their job done, they communicate effectively. They understand and they are understood. So you don't need perfect grammar, you don't need perfect pronunciation in order to get a good paying job at an international company. But you do need to take more risks. And for those who are learning English, in order to make more money by getting a job, at a higher paying company overseas, you don't need to be perfect. You need to communicate effectively and you need to take more risks. That's my point of view. And TikTok user Jorge Dunn commented, "Okay, so I already learned English. Now how do I get the job at an international company?" Now the simple answer to that is you need to somehow communicate to your would-be boss or hiring manager that you will make the company better. And the longer answer, well, that's the topic of this podcast series, Leveraged Learning. How to leverage your language skills in order to advance your career and live an awesome life. So if you're learning English because you want to move abroad, become a digital nomad, or just stay in your home country and get clients in the United States or some other developed country with high income, learning English from some generic course, even if it's a business English course, is not going to cut it. You need to become a better communicator. And I hope this podcast will help you do that. So in this episode, I'm going to be discussing a strategy that I used the last time I was job hunting. This strategy successfully landed me 2 interviews and 2 job offers, and I only applied to 2 companies. That's right, 100% success rate. Now, I can't promise you that you'll have the same success rate, but I guarantee you that employing this strategy is going to be better than the strategy that most people employ. No spamming out your CV, your resume to 100 companies and getting no replies. This strategy works, but it takes a bit of focus. But first, if you're learning English or you know someone who's learning English, you can study with this podcast on Link, L-I-N-G-Q. Link is probably the most powerful language learning app that you've never heard of. You see, unlike Duolingo, which uses silly sentences, on Link you learn with content that is actually interesting, like this podcast episode. You can look up all the words you don't know, save useful phrases. You can learn thousands of words in context, which is how our brains like to learn. LingQ measures the activity that you do in the app. So, you have objective metrics of how much work you're putting in, how much you're learning. So, how much words you read, how much time you spent listening, how many new words you come across and save meanings for, how many words you learn. LingQ tracks all of this, so you know exactly how much you're putting in and how much you're getting out. And the best part, it's not going to cost you a fortune, okay? With LingQ, you're going to learn thousands of new words and phrases with interesting content for a small fraction of the price that you'd spend on traditional schools and expensive generic English courses, or even so-called business English that often teaches robotic corporate speech that doesn't actually help you communicate effectively. You can get started with LingQ for free at lingq.com, LINGQ.com, or search for LingQ in the Google Play or Google App Stores. That's LINGQ. And use the code LearnIsLife, all one word, LearnIsLife, LEARNISLIFE. Use that code and you can get 100 free words to save. So normally you'll just get 20 free words to save and learn on LingQ, but with the code LearnIsLife, you can get 120. So use that code. Now, most of this podcast will be available for free for users on LingQ. Probably about 2/3 or 3/4 of it, I'll put it up on LingQ and make it free for LingQ users to basically interact, an interactive transcript. You'll be able to click on all the words, and if there's any words that you don't know, you can save them to learn them over time. And then all the words that you've saved on any future lessons that you do on LingQ, you'll see those words in yellow. So that means, okay, those are the words you're learning. And even before you even start an episode, a lesson, you can see how many words in the lesson you know, how many words in the lesson you're learning, and how many words are new. So pretty neat. It lets you focus on, okay, maybe this lesson might be too hard, this lesson might be too easy, so then you can focus your study on, that sweet spot, not too hard, not too difficult. So I'll put most of this episode available for free on LingQ, but you'll only be able to save 120 words on the free version. So you have to upgrade to the premium, which it's quite affordable, and then you'll be able to do the whole lesson and save all the words that you don't know. But become a LearnIsLife Patreon member and you can access the whole episode. So become a LearnIsLife Patreon member and you can access the whole episode. And for those who are really serious, we have a higher tier Patreon membership that includes weekly coaching calls with me, and those calls will examine what is holding you back from reaching your English communication goals, and we'll discuss strategies for overcoming those barriers to get you to where you want to be. So maybe you want help crafting your resume or help writing cold emails, maybe LinkedIn invites, cover letters, meeting people, what's the word, networking, interview practice. If you are seriously committed to mastering English, to advance your career and live an awesome life, you got to join that top tier Patreon coaching membership at patreon.com/learnislife. So you already learned English. Now, how do you get the job at an international company? Okay, so I'm going to discuss 3 problems that you might have if you're asking this question. Number 1, maybe you have no employable skills. And if that's the case, if you have no employable skills, well, sorry, I can't help you there. You need to go get some skills. But maybe you do have skills, but you're just not framing it in the right way. So then, problem number 2, maybe you learned school English. You learned English in school, you got good grades, but you still don't know how to communicate effectively in English. There's often a mismatch between what we learn in school and what, people actually use in the real world. Maybe you know how to write very academic essays, but you don't know how to write an email that people want to read. You might, because in school, we're encouraged to use a lot of big words and write long sentences, whereas in the real world, in business, and I'm not talking, big business. I'm talking, small businesses. People like to communicate in punchy sentences. Don't use big words if you don't have to. That sort of thing. So maybe you learned school English, but you still don't know how to communicate effectively in English. And effective communication is relative to the situation or domain. In this case, you want to communicate to your would-be employer that you can benefit their company more than it will cost them to hire and train you. So that's problem number 2. Maybe you don't know how to communicate your value to them. And problem number 3, maybe you just can't get your foot in the door. And by this I mean maybe you send a bunch of resumes and you just never hear back and get an interview. So the solution is to take a better strategy to target the right businesses and communicate your value as succinctly as possible. So we're going to discuss my strategy. I call it the nail the niche strategy. Nail the niche. I love that word, niche. N-I-C-H-E. Reminds me of Nietzsche, or niche. I think I'm pronouncing it right. See, even native English speakers, there are some words we don't know how to pronounce. Anyways, the name of the strategy doesn't matter. But you can use this to seek full-time jobs or freelance client work. Maybe those client works can potentially be turned into an agency business model if you document your processes and hire people to execute those processes later on. So let's talk about the standard approach that most people take in searching for jobs. This is the approach that I took when I graduated college, and it didn't work. You have your resume and you go on job sites and you do a one-click application. You send your resume to every job posting which you might be remotely qualified for or interested in. Which, if you're just getting started out, you might not be qualified for any jobs. Okay, you need 5 years, you need 3 years of experience. Well, I don't have any experience. Now, this actually isn't that big of a deal for the nail the niche for my strategy. I'm going to get rid of the name, okay? For my strategy, okay? We'll get to that. So you sent your resume to 100 companies, and then you just wait to hear back from them. But you never hear back. 100 companies, and you don't hear back from a single one. What went wrong? That's a really bad ratio. What went wrong? The problem is the hiring manager, your would-be boss, never saw your application. You got filtered out. Or maybe they saw your application, but it was just one among hundreds of others, and they didn't give it more than a 10-second glance. Your application just didn't stand out. So, how can you make your application stand out? Well, you need to take a different approach. This approach definitely works better for startups and smaller independent companies, the approach that I'm going to discuss. I have never applied to a really big corporation, publicly traded company, but I would say you have a better chance with this method that I'm going to discuss than with the standard approach we just discussed, even if you're applying to Amazon or Pepsi. So here's the basic strategy. You're going to build a very short list of companies that you want to work for. Ideally, they are hiring for a position that you're qualified for, but even if they're not, that's okay. Number 2, you're going to get very clear on exactly what you want to do for them. Very, very clear. What is the job that you're going to do? You're not going to apply to 3 jobs, you're going to apply to 1 job. Number 3, you're going to find the contact of the person that you would be working directly under, and you're going to email them. So you're going to find their email, and you're also going to add them on LinkedIn. Number 4, in your email, you're going to tell them how you will improve the company and what evidence you have to support your claim. That evidence being your past experiences. And at the end of the email, you're going to link to a project. This project is the primary evidence. Okay, we talked about your past experiences, but this project This is the primary evidence that you have to suggest that you can improve the company. And basically, with this project, you will have started the job that you want to do for them. You're going to show them your work in this document. Okay? How do I know that I can improve your company? Because I already did this. And you're going to send a link to them. All right. So let's dive deeper into each of these. So first off, you're going to select a narrower industry niche. Okay? We want to get very specific because we're going to spend a lot of time on each job application. Okay? So get very specific. Okay? Let's imagine what industry do you want to work in? Okay? What are you interested in? Because let's say you're going to spend the next, 5 years of your life in this industry, maybe your whole career, but probably not, but at least a couple years. So what would you want to spend your time in? Okay, now just tech isn't going to cut it. Okay, what kind of tech? In my case, I decided I wanted to work for a language learning technology company. Now you don't need to narrow it down to a specific kind of consumer app, but you do need to narrow it down to just a handful of companies because you're going to do a deep dive into each company to figure out what they need and frame yourself as the expert to solve that need. Or at least, if you're younger and you are not an expert, maybe at least you want to frame yourself as someone with some experience and a willingness and desire and passion to learn and become an expert and solve their need. The need might be they just need an assistant that, is detail-oriented and can learn, and that's fine. So in my case, I applied to 2 companies and I got 2 offers. One of the companies I knew about because I got ads for the product. The other I found out through a YouTube video. So they sponsored a conference and I was watching a recording of a presentation at the conference, a digital conference. I looked up all the sponsors to see if they were hiring. And, I applied. One of them had a position that they were hiring for, and one didn't have a position, but I still applied for a position that they didn't have, and I got the job. So you're going to be spending a lot of time on each company. So it's better if you already know a lot about the industry, if it's something you're interested in, or at least something you want to know a lot about, and find out how you can help them. So you're going to build a list of a few companies that you really want to work for. So think hard about this because this is important. Okay, you're not just spamming out resumes. You're going deep on a few companies that you really want to work for. Okay, so you've built a list of 4 or 5 companies. Now you're going to go see if they're hiring. If they have a position that matches your experience, desire, skill set, perfect. Okay, that means, they need this, they know they need this, and they're trying to find someone that can solve this. So in that case, just apply for the position, follow the instructions on their job listing of how to apply, but don't just send a resume and cover letter. You're going to go above and beyond that. You're actually going to start the job. What do I mean by that? Well, you can do a number of things. So, number 1, you can send a detailed breakdown of what you're going to do in the first 3 months, okay? Including data about, what you're going to do will improve the company, if you can. This is what I did for one of the companies that I applied for, which I'll discuss later. So that's one option. You're going to send a 90-day plan, which nobody's doing, okay? So this is going to make you stand out. Number 2, you're going to find 10 problems and offer a solution to each of those problems. Now, 10, let's say 5 to 10 problems, okay? For instance, let's say you are doing digital marketing. You're going to look at their website. You're going to, look at the ads that they're running on Facebook and Google, and you're going to find 5 to 10 problems with it and things that you would improve. And you're going to offer solutions to those problems. So this is what I did for my current job at Link. I applied as head of customer success, head of learner success. So I went through the process of signing up for the app, of using the product, as a free user, going through their website, social media, receiving their emails for, a couple weeks. And then I made a list of 10 problems. And then I said what I would do to solve those problems, okay? These are 10 things that can be improved, and here's what I will do to improve it. And this will make the company better. And so I included a link to that document with those 10 problems and solutions at the end of my cover email. Now, how many people are spending that time and effort to do something like that? Very few, okay? That's how you stand apart, okay? I got the job. I got an interview. This is awesome. In the interview, the CEO, he already knew and agreed with most of those problems, right? He just needed someone that was going to execute on it. And a few of the problems he hadn't thought of, so, even better. So this is how you can stand apart from the pack, okay? Number 3, an option for one of these projects that you can do is redesign their homepage, okay? Do a mock-up of a redesign. If you're a designer, you can do a design. If you're a copywriter or marketer, you can rewrite their sales page or write a series of social media posts. Write 10 potential blog post titles. The idea is that by doing this, you're dispensing with the platitudes and the cliches that most applications suffer from. Everybody just sounds the same. They sound robotic. They're just using their business English. Oh, I'm great at written and spoken communication. I have leadership skills. This stuff means nothing, okay? Instead of telling your would-be employer that you have great written and verbal communication skills, you are better off showing them your skills, okay? Write, speak, send a video to your hiring manager. That's an option, right? Nobody does that. Instead of writing a cover letter, just, make a video. Hey, would-be boss, I'm Tommy, and I want to work for you because of this. I think your company's awesome, but I think it could even be better if you did this, and I can do this. Send a short video, upload it to YouTube, an unlisted YouTube video, write a really short email. Hey, I want to work for you. Here's the email. Make a website if that's what you want to do for the company. Show them that you can do what they need. Okay, so you're going to be spending a lot more time on a single application than you probably would be spending sending out 100 applications with the traditional, the shotgun method. We're doing sniper method. I like that better than the nail your niche. We're doing sniper method instead of the shotgun method. Okay, so I didn't say that this would be easy, but it's effective. So you're going to apply to their jobs email if they have a job posting. But also add the hiring manager on LinkedIn. Find out who you would be working with. What's the job title of the person that would be directly above you, and then, find them on LinkedIn. And also find their email. Find out what went wrong. Another idea is to contact the person that was doing the job before you. Reach out to them on LinkedIn or email. Find out what went wrong. If they didn't like the job, find out about the hiring manager. If they can tell you anything, how to get on their good sides. Okay, so if you apply, you send the email. You go through their job portal, but you don't hear back after a few weeks. Send the hiring manager an email, just checking in and reminding them of the awesome project you did for them. So that is if they have a job posting for what you want to do. If they don't have a job posting for what you want to do, that's okay. Again, I got one of my jobs. They didn't have the job that I was hiring for. It was for SEO content strategist I applied for, even though they weren't hiring for that. You can offer to create your own position. And in fact, that shows a lot of initiative. That shows to the hiring manager, or, if it's a small company, the CEO, that you're the type of person that is going to take the initiative And instead of him having to, like, create your projects for you, you can create your own projects, and you just get feedback from him and kind of direction. He says, like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, boom. Bosses love that, okay? Especially at smaller companies where, it's less like bureaucratic and regimented. They love that. So again, this is what I did for another language learning app. I'm not going to say the app because our relationship ended badly, but it started with this method. So I reached out to them proposing a role as an SEO content strategist. Now, they weren't hiring for this position, but I saw that they needed this, because of my experience with SEO. I can see if a company, has potential, but they're not executing on that potential. And I made the case. In the email, I made the case that the company was missing out on a growth opportunity by having bad SEO content and a disorganized website. I gave some data points explaining all the organic traffic that they're missing out on and explaining how big the opportunity was. I discussed my previous experience in SEO and my interest in language learning. And then at the end of the email, I said that I wrote up a detailed plan of what I would accomplish in the first 3 months, and then I linked to it. Should they be interested, just click on the link to see my plan. And in case they are interested, I left a simple call to action to, let me know if you're interested and we can set up a time to call. So make it simple, make their job easy, right? Boom, if you want to see my plan, there it is. If you see my plan, you like what you see, and you want to set up a time to call to discuss next steps, let me know. Say yes, and we'll find a time. Make it really easy. So I found out who I would be working under. In this case, it was their head of growth. I found his email and I emailed him. I sent him an email with my proposal. He had actually been meaning to look into SEO, but just didn't have the time. So he knew, hey, we should do SEO, but he didn't have the time. So when I reached out to him, it was perfect. And I made it very easy for him to say yes. Make it easy for them to say yes. So we started with a month-by-month contract, and if that went well, which ultimately it didn't, it could be expanded into a full-time position, right? So here's another option. If they're not hiring and maybe they can't do a full-time position, you can offer yourself as a freelancer or a part-timer with the opportunity to prove yourself to get, to get more work. And this is especially helpful for you youngsters or people that are changing careers. If you don't have a lot of experience, you can offer yourself for a very low rate. Just, for the first few months, say, hey, or for the 1 month, hey, I want to prove myself. I can do this and I can learn. I want to prove myself at this lower rate. And then once I prove myself, then we can discuss, a full-time, higher paying offer, that sort of thing. So just to get your foot in the door. Especially useful for those of you who don't have a lot of experience. Now, if you do have a lot of experience, well, you can kind of use this strategy if they don't have a job, but you're making this offer. You can use this to land freelance gigs, and then you can land other clients. And again, if you have no experience, well, it's going to be tougher, but not impossible. Again, you can set yourself up as someone that can learn new things, and you're willing to learn, and you're detail oriented. All these intangible things. Maybe you don't have the skills, but you can learn those skills. And there's plenty of affordable online courses out there to learn things, and you can let them know, hey, I did this course, and I want to, I did this design course, and I want to help you design your website, that sort of thing. You want to make it, the key is to make it low risk for the company, right? So if you don't have a lot of experience, but you are offering to work at a very low rate, well, that's low risk for the company, at least. potentially, because they have to spend the time to train you and that sort of thing. But you want to make it as low risk as possible without, doing yourself a disservice. You don't want to work from less than you're worth. So if you offer to start at a low price, it makes it easier for them to say yes. But just be clear that once you've proven yourself, you expect to be rewarded according to the value that you've brought. And make sure to establish a time frame for that during your interview process so you're not taken advantage of later on. No two jobs are the same, but you should practice explaining how your past experiences prepare you for this job that you're applying for or proposing, right? So you might not have done the exact same job, but you can communicate, you can frame all your past experiences in a way that make it seem as if they perfectly prepare you for this new job. So that's the strategy, guys, the sniper strategy. If you want to get a job in an international company, okay, we've discussed this strategy. You're going to build a short list of companies you want to work for, a very short list. You're going to get very clear on what you want to do for the company. You're going to find out who you will be working under and get their contact info. And then you're going to convince them that you will help them either via a regular job application, if they have the job posted, or through a cold email. And you should tailor your resume to the job you're applying for, okay? You're not going to have the same resume. You're going to have a different resume for each of these companies that you're applying for. And you're only going to include the experiences that are relevant to the job. And if you don't have any experiences that are hyper relevant to the job, you're going to frame your experiences in such a way that it seems relevant. It's all about wording. If you have one or two job experiences, you need to frame them in such a way that it seems relevant to the job, okay? And your cover letter or cover email should be written with the following question in mind. How will you make this company better? And what evidence do you have to support your claims? And of course, that evidence will be past experiences, but primarily it will be the project that you're going to do and send them that nobody else is doing. This is going to help you stand apart. And, whether you're a native English speaker or a non-native English speaker, if you're able to communicate this stuff and you make it low risk for the company, you're going to get interviews and you're going to get jobs. And, as I said, I've done this for smaller companies, growing companies, not huge behemoth companies. I can't speak to whether this works for them. I think it will. It's just harder because, they have more bureaucratic processes. There's less wiggle room. So maybe they can only hire people, in their country. They can't hire contract workers. And here you want to basically find companies that can hire contract workers if you're looking to work for a company in another country. So, I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you think? Thoughts, comments, concerns, questions? Let me know. You can email me at tommy@learnislife.com, or leave a comment on YouTube. Go to my Patreon, patreon.com/learnislife, if you want to become a member and get coaching on this stuff. You've learned English, but you want to become better at communicating your value to be able to get a higher paying job. And if you know people that are learning English still, and probably at an intermediate and want to get more advanced, send them this podcast as a link. Send them this podcast, and then let them know that they can study this podcast on link to learn a lot of words. So that is that, guys. If there's any other content that you would like me to cover, please let me know. Thank you very much. Have fun learning.